Hi everyone. We're here today to discuss neurodiversity, and in particular neurodiversity across Openreach. We've actually got two employees from Openreach, two employee managers who are on the neurodiverse network, and we'll come on later on to explain what it is that they do and what their role is within the network. We've also got Lily, who'll introduce herself too, and she's from the CWU perspective on the Openreach national team. But first of all, then, myself, I'm Fiona Curtis, and I'm a national officer for the CWU.
Hello, my name is Lily Savage. I'm on the CW Openreach national team. I'm also on the Young Workers Committee for the Irish Congress of Trade Unions.
And then we've also got Lindsay from Openreach.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Furs. I'm the co-chair of the New Enabled Network, which was previously Able2 and NDN Networks.
Thanks, Lindsay. And we've also got Susan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Susan Hogg. By day, I'm the Senior Area Manager for Service Delivery GB Ops, and I'm also the co-chair with Lindsay for our new fabulous network, Enabled.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Susan. And I think this is a perfect time because, especially whenever you've got the two networks coming together and it is enabled, and it's actually the launch, I suppose, of the new networks, the networks coming together. So it's a perfect time for us actually doing this podcast and letting our members know about how we are working collectively on neurodiversity from the CW perspective and from Openreach. Today in particular, we think it's really, really important that we're showing you, the members, about this is about us working alongside Openreach, especially on a topic that is so important, that does need the awareness. And that's what we're going to come on to speak about today, and about how we're working with Openreach and what Openreach are trying to do in the neurodiverse space. And I suppose that's where I'll ask Lily to kind of give a brief overview of what neurodiversity actually is.
Yeah, neurodiversity, although a very common thing, much more common than people realise, it refers to the natural variation of brain functioning. The brain has an infinite range of functioning, behavioural traits and ways to process information, and that's simply what neurodiversity is. It's a natural way for your brain to function, which is different from neurotypical people.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lily. Lindsay, do you want to explain then your role within Openreach then within the network?
Okay, so as a co-chair, we just recently brought the two networks together. So originally, I came on board as one of the community for and the committee members for the Able2 network. And then I interviewed to become a co-chair of the Able2 and the NDN networks, which, as we said before, is now enabled. Really excited about that. So my role as a co-chair is to work with Susan, our other committee members, and also our communities to really understand and listen to find out what it is that our community needs more of from an NDN and a disability perspective. What can we do to really help them in the workplace, and also help the remainder of the workplace to understand more about disability and neurodivergences as well.
Thank you, Lindsay. Susan, I know it might be a bit hard to try and, especially when Lindsay's just given in-depth analysis of what it is that she does, but do you want to explain your role, and if there's anything you want to add in addition to Lindsay?
Yeah, so I do probably less sensible stuff than Lindsay, but for me, I've come along. It was completely new for me. I'd only realised quite recently that I possessed a lot of the traits, and I realised I'm a senior manager in service delivery and GB Ops. So I've got in North Scotland, so I've got 100 engineers. And I very, very quickly realised after doing some development calls with them that 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, apparently. However, in engineers, because they're so highly functioning, I think it's about 1 in 3 or 4. So for me, from a selfish point of view, I want to get to the field because I feel that the field is always a little bit missed sometimes, and that's what I'm excited to do. And I think that Lindsay and I, I think we've got a good relationship already, and I think we're going to make a big difference to the people, like from a support point of view, that are neurodivergent, and also that have disabilities, including hidden disabilities. But I think Lindsay and I are finding that there's a lot of crossing going on with the two networks, so it's probably a really good thing that we've joined.
Thank you, Susan. I think that that actually really ties into, I suppose the question I was going to ask about why it's important that our members and your employees actually educate themselves on neurodiversity, what it actually is, and in particular, whenever Susan, I think this is where we've had conversations in the past where some of us don't realise that we actually are neurodiverse until we actually look into it, or maybe one of our relatives becomes neurodiverse, and then we actually start to educate ourselves on what it actually is. And then quite a few of us as well, we have coping mechanisms around to try and cope with things. But I think if I ask the question, and I'll ask it kind of off the three of you, of why is it important that we educate ourselves on neurodiversity and that our members and your employees educate themselves on it?
Do you want me to jump in first? I was offering myself to go first there, but
No, go on. No, go ahead, Susan, if you wish to. Honestly, go ahead.
yeah. So for me, I think the big gap is with our managers and our leaders in the business, because while a lot of our employees don't realise they're neurodiverse, when they do, unofficially, I think that they have to be able to have a safe space to say to their manager or to whoever their leader is, um, I possess neurodivergent traits and I'm struggling with this. But I think the whole key is that we need to educate, because a lot of people will just go, oh, yeah, is that right? And it's almost like the manager lottery we speak about. If you don't really know it and you don't understand it yourself, how can you support people? So I think that for me is the biggest thing, is about education. While we need to build relationships with our employees, and you're not going to know people until, and I've got, which I can share with you some later on, some examples of where it's really helped people to understand what being neurodivergent is, as well as managers.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, just jumped in there.
No, absolutely
No.
brilliant. No, that's what it's all about having this conversation. And I think that's where it's key, because that's where, as a CW, we work alongside Openreach and yourselves so that we can spread that message of what you're saying, Susan, about making sure that people have that safe space of where they can go to. So whether it is, if they feel safe to speak to the manager, they can speak to their manager. And if they don't feel safe, and if you don't feel safe speaking to the manager, that you've got the CWU that you can come to and speak in confidence with as well, and that we can help you through what the next steps could possibly be in your own scenario. I suppose, Lily, do you want to come in there next?
No, Susan, you really took the words out of my mouth. Education is so important, and one of the things that we've kind of discovered, especially looking across businesses, is that Openreach is probably one of the only business that has networks within the organisation, which is so important to create a neuroinclusive environment. But also, neurodiverse people usually only come to their managers when things have got really, really bad. They need to have a safe space to be able to disclose their neurodivergency so that they can get the support that they need and be able to articulate what help they need. It's all well and good sort of having these this visibility, but unless they feel safe enough and confident enough and that they're speaking to someone who's knowledgeable on it, or at least have some basis of empathy, they're not going to want to disclose that. So I think that's incredibly important, is education. And managers don't need to be scared about asking those questions. It can be as simple as, hey Lily, what way do you like your tea? It can be, hey, what way can we do this meeting? Do you need 15 minutes? It's going to last an hour. Do you need a break? Really, really simple questions like that can actually help people so much. And I think reasonable adjustments don't have to be these costly things. In fact, 59% of them cost the business nothing, and the rest are universal, so it'll actually help neurotypical people as well. So I think education is so important, in creating that safe space, which I think the enabled is now going to do, and I think that's going to help to really create a neuroinclusive space.
Lindsay, do you want to supplement anything?
I think most of it's been said. I guess the call out for me is that we shouldn't wait for our people to educate us. We should be educating ourselves.
Yep.
As a manager, if any person that would work for me, I would be looking at, now that I understand more about neurodiversity and more about disabilities, I would be looking to start those natural, comfortable conversations to try and get to know them a little bit better, and I guess challenge myself on making sure that I'm creating an open environment where we can have those honest conversations and people can say, Linz, I need a little bit of help with this, and I then know where to go to, because I've got the committees, I've got the CWU that can come and help me as well, to help me understand where to find all the information.
Well said.
Yeah. And I think this, again, then, I suppose, the question that I want to propose then on the back of that is, like, what examples in reality have we got where people, especially in the workplace, I know we've got it from examples from the CW perspective, but even from the business, from Openreach, about how neurodiversity actually works in practice and what are some of the barriers that people face.
So I'm going to let Susan answer that, because I know that Susan mentioned before she's got a few examples ready. So we'll go to Susan first.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so I've got a really good example. I think, to be fair, a bit like me, I mean, I'm 52 years old, and I only realised from TikTok that I had traits, and other people pointing it out. And I think, as a leader, it's difficult to say to somebody, are you neurodiverse? Because a lot of them might think, I don't actually know what that means. So I think it's firstly the way you position it. But I'll give you a live example. There's a lovely engineer in one of the teams. He used to be in my team when I was a patch manager. And he's an older gentleman, and he's what you might describe as a little bit quirky. And I got to really know him, and he's just he's a lovely guy. Anyway, when I got promoted, he went into a different team, and his new manager, was quite a man's man, and men are men, and they'll do this and they'll do that. Lovely guy, but very old fashioned in his thinking. And I know the engineer didn't feel seen. So it was then up to me to educate my manager and saying, you just need to see him. If you see it, because his performance wasn't where it needed to be, he was really struggling with lots of things. And I said, you just have to see him. You have to embrace him. You have to love him. You have to take an interest in him. So the manager got to know him, learnt all about he does wild swimming, and just really embraced him. And put the effort and time into him without labeling him as anything. And, simple things like if he was going on holiday, he would say he was going to be wild camping, and the manager would phone him up and say, enjoy your camping. And then he came back and say, how was your camping? And just really seeing him. And that engineer's performance went through the roof. And he actually, I've got a really good relationship with him still, and he phoned me and he says he feels seen. He feels like he's loved and he's seen, and that's really all we can ask. But it just shows you how important it is, from a business point of view and from a people point of view, how we need to adapt the way we deal with people, and we have to see everybody for what their strengths are, and put your arms around them and really just show them how much you appreciate them as a different person. So that's probably one of the best examples I can probably share with you.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Susan, because it hits home that every neurodiverse person is different.
Absolutely.
And it's about then understanding of how can I help and support this individual, and what does this individual actually need to actually, and this is where it can affect performance, and it can affect even how somebody feels in a team. And it's about making sure that understanding is there. And I suppose even, I don't know whether, Lily, if you want to draw out maybe some of the key issues actually neurodiverse people actually face, because it just leads on from what Susan was saying there.
No, absolutely. Being neurodiverse, I am neurodiverse, and it can be a very isolating, very lonely experience. Your brain doesn't work like everybody else's, and that question always is, why can't it? Why can't I be like everybody else? And it's about kind of fighting that internalized ableism. Like I am a relatively normal person, I like to think, but my brain just works differently. And getting to know your people is that kind of thing that gets banded about with Openreach managers. Like, get to know your people, get to know that person. If you're not really getting to know them, then these kind of training exercises are useless, because you're not really getting to know that person. And it can be as simple as asking, how can I be there for you? And in this moment, how can I help you? And I think with networks like this, that's so important for visibility and representation, because of course we have LGBTQIA plus networks, and we have ethnic minority networks. All of those people also suffer from neurodiversity. It's an intersectional issue actually. So it's really, really important to have this. And I think if I could bounce a question back, it would be like, what is this network? So if I'm a member and maybe I haven't got a diagnosis yet, but I am struggling in work, how can I contact Able to Network or Enable? Thank you, thank you, Lindsay. How can I contact you? Like, what can you do for me as a member? That sounds really like straightforward, but maybe, how do I see it? Do you know, how do I get in touch?
Yeah. So we have, as a business, we are using Viva Engage as our main comms tool now. So we've put some notifications in the loop because we've just mentioned a few times whilst we can. We've recently combined and we're now enabled. So we're launching that new network. So we've put a comms in the loop. We've also announced it on Clive's calls and some of the more local calls as well. And then we have Viva Engage, which is our main comms tool. And if you come on to Viva Engage, there's a site on there called Enabled, and you can actually access all our links on there as well. So it'll take you out to the passports or the workplace adjustments, or we've got links on there for some of the neurodiversity tests that you can do online as well. So there's a whole host of guidance and advice on there that you can access through there. Also, our committee members, we're just putting a post up which will introduce everyone to our committee members. So who are they? What do they do? Some of the specialisms, just to help you get to know us a little bit more. And then obviously Susan and I are always here if you want to get in touch with us directly. So if you don't find what you need on those Viva Engage pages, and you still got a question, then I guess Susan and I's ask is please get in touch with us, ask questions, don't sit there in silence. That's what we're there for.
Amazing.
I think one of the main I think one of the main aspects of it is the listening. We have listening sessions, and we had one quite recently where people came on and spoke about what they needed from us and how we could support them. And it really, I mean, a lot of what Lindsay and I do is signposting, but already since the short time that we've been together, we've had people have reached out to me about, and I know people are reaching out to Lindsay as well, but people have reached out to me and said, I'm really struggling. I have one particular gentleman who I really feel for, and he said he's having a really difficult time with his son who has really bad ADHD. He's really not functioning at home. He's becoming violent, and this poor, gentleman was really struggling. He said, I don't want to go off sick. I just don't know where to go. So I asked on our committee forum of people who support, if there was, this is the situation, what can we do? And a lovely guy reached out to me and said, I was his son. And I've put the pair of them together through, asking permissions, etc. And the gentleman actually phoned me and says, you've no idea the difference this is making. So Lindsay and I aren't experts, but we've got the power to signpost, I suppose, and support. And I feel that already people are reaching out and saying, this is really helpful, this is really helpful. I think we're also getting the safety team involved as well, because I know that Openreach are going to do a big campaign on, we have home safe and well. Well, the massive emphasis is going to be on the well bit, and it's all about well-being and how people feel. And we've actually got Adam Elsworth on board as well. And there's loads of things happening in the background that you're probably going to be sick of the sight of Lindsay and I by the time we get going with all our support mechanisms. So because we know it's needed.
We also have as well, we work really closely, just on the back of what Susan's just said, we work really closely with the allies and the peer-to-peers as well. So around that buddying piece where people are reaching out for somebody to get more information from, or they just need someone to talk to that's been through the same experience, then we work with the other networks and the communities so we can try and bring that help in as well where we can't help.
Amazing. It would be good as well, whilst it's developing, because the CWU reps, most of us are trained, mental health first aid trained. So by all means, we can also help it in that capacity. I know that a lot of members do come to us sometimes whenever it's gone too far.
Yeah.
And what we always say to them is you do need to disclose your neurodiversity, especially to the business, because the legislation cannot protect you unless you vocalize it and say it. And that is a really scary thing to do. A lot of people are terrified to talk about their neurodiversity or to come forward and be honest with it for fear of stigma, for fear of discrimination, loss of opportunities, all of those things. So how important do you think it is to make members feel confident about their neurodiversity? And do you think that Enable can contribute to that?
So,
Well,
yeah. Go on, Susan.
Sorry, Lindsay. I was
Go
going
on,
to jump in
Susan.
and say, and I'm so sorry. I'd probably be even more annoying if I was sitting there with you. But for me, I know some people really struggle with their neurodiversity. They really struggle with the stigma. You're not different. You're just you. And I think it's that, again, creating that psychological safety to make sure people are comfortable going, well, this is me and you have to accept me for who I am. But some people don't have the confidence to do that. So Lindsay and I are going to try and breed that confidence and, have people stepping up. And again, the development calls I had, it was one engineer that started it, and he said, what are you going to do for neurodiverse people out of nowhere? And it opened a brilliant can of worms where people just went, well, that's me as well. And I've thanked that lovely engineer so many times, because he really has opened up a safe space, and he's probably created a lot of what we're doing today within my team.
I agree, Susan. For me, it's about, I guess, normalising the conversation. It's, it should be a natural conversation. Nobody should be in fear of saying, I have a disability or a neurodiversity. It should just be normal. We shouldn't have to second guess ourselves. We shouldn't have to live in fear that if we disclose something like that, that there's repercussions. As a manager, managers should be curious in themselves as well, and they should be questioning where they've got a team of people. When you look at the national statistics, there's a high percentage of people with a disability or a neurodiversity. I think it's about 25%, over 25% for a disability. We should really be questioning ourselves when we're managing our teams and understanding, why have I got a team of 15 people yet nobody's declared a neurodiversity or a disability? To me, that should be ringing alarm bells. Well, and that's probably where the education should come into it, and questioning what we know about our people as well, and making sure we get to know them better.
Absolutely. I think the stigma and education piece are actually quite, they're interlinked, aren't they? Because we need to educate people around neurodiversity, but also then to ensure that there isn't the stigma around being neurodiverse or what it could mean, and making sure that from both perspectives, from the CW perspective and from Openreach, that we're working collectively both together to make sure that we are both educating and also getting rid of any stigma that is out there. I was going to tie it into, especially when you're talking around people that especially needing particular adjustments in the workplace because of being because they have got a diagnosis for being neurodiverse, or else about having the conversation with with your manager, because you've already made some adjustments or know that you need adjustments in the background. Because some people, they don't want to go for a diagnosis, they don't want that label, they don't want that perceived stigma. But then that's what I want to kind of bring that out, because I know you mentioned the BT passport, but if you can explain what the BT passport is there for and why it's used and how people can engage with their manager.
So the BT passport for me is absolutely crucial, because what the BT passport is really just it's just a document. It could be a one-page document on any support that an individual needs. It could be from a caring responsibility, it could be from a medical point of view, it could be anything. And what it does is it allows, you can mark on HR that you've got a passport, and it allows you to, because you know how often sometimes people change managers, it allows that an individual to be supported through their journey in Openreach or BT, and not have to relay their story a million times. It travels with them, and it's really just because often people will say, I've got a BT passport, and you know that you can go on, and often they share it with you anyway, but really it's just a support mechanism that people have this. I would say, like, it's a little bit of comfort that this is what I've got, and this is, I don't want to repeat myself. And from an adjustment point of view, and I'll give you a good example of some adjustments that we've made. Neurodiverse people, engineers, we've got all these fabulous engineers, and we expect them to work technology, turn up at a house, have a conversation. They're brilliant at fixing faults, but some of the things we probably haven't done as well supporting them with. So people that are dyslexic, we encourage them to use voice notes. We encourage them to record notes on their phone. And there's lots of things that we're doing now to support people in the field and desk with you know things that don't come natural to them. And recently, one of my managers said, I just found out that one of my engineers was dyslexic, and he's hidden it for years. And I says, how did you find it out? And he said, he told me. And I thought, this is brilliant. This guy's worked for us for like 30 years. And I thought, that's brilliant that he's created the space that you can feel that you can do that. But so I went off at a wee tangent there. But yeah, it's important that people, we don't talk about the passport enough. And we, it's something that's really important, that Lindsay and I can do a session on passports, and they're so simple yet so effective. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question in a roundabout kind of way.
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you, Susan. And I suppose that's where, Lily, do you want to come in even from the CWU perspective and the fact that we can help and support members even in that process?
Yes, BT passports are commonplace with union reps. We take members through them, encourage them to be as honest as possible. There's a lot of, oh, should I say this? Should I admit this? And the answer is always going to be yes, absolutely. Work is such a long and all-encompassing part of your life that it should be easy to come to work. It should be a place where you feel safe and supported, and that life is a lot easier. It should never be a struggle. And I think the BT passport has helped that enormously, especially whenever we came back from COVID. Changing that work environment for so many neurodiverse people meant that they were coming to us as a union and saying, I actually work better this way, or I found out that I like noise cancelling headphones because I could hear my partner in the background whenever I was working from home. So we're able to bring that all into the workplace, and ultimately Openreach did support it and really helped. So it did actually revolutionise a lot of people's working lives, which is fantastic. And especially if you've met one autistic person, you haven't met all of them. Same with people for ADHD. No two people are the same. So having a BT passport helps them to write down their needs and their individual asks and reasonable adjustments, because we can't all paint everybody with the same brush, although we have that term. Actually, neurodiverse, it's an infinite range, the way your mind works and the way that work works for you.
I think because it ties into what you were saying earlier, Lily, with the intersectionality and mental health and all of those things, because especially it's just about having that conversation. And whether you want to have that conversation, we would encourage you to speak with your CW rep, and then we can then make sure we go through like what this process entails, and especially if you do want to come in confidence. But that's where then we do encourage you to reach out to your manager, because it's about having that support from your manager in doing your day-to-day job. And that's why it's really important that we are working with Openreach, that managers are able to have that conversation then with you as our members. I do want to then just touch on then, especially Lily, we're talking about some of the, especially in the workplace, of how being neurodiverse can actually be a good thing, and how it actually brings a lot of positives actually into businesses and into Openreach. So if we come to you first, Lily, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an array of skills and personalities that neurodiverse people have. You don't want to limit that ever. In fact, it's so much better for the business to have those skills. Think of those new range of ideas and those personalities that come through and diversify your workplace. That's the kind of beauty of it as well. And I think harnessing that and supporting that is beneficial for everybody, actually. To be honest, that would really be the best thing I could say about that. Nobody's limited. It's not a weakness. Actually, it's incredible strength. And a lot of the people I have worked with, I've just been in awe of, actually, who are neurodiverse, and the range of skills that they have, and the things that they bring to the table. Or it's, that you want to have a workplace full of neurodiverse people.
I agree with what Lily said. And if you look at some of the famous people out there that are neurodiverse, and again, absolutely in awe of some of the things that they've actually achieved that, you know, people just are not giving themselves recognition for on a day-to-day
Absolutely.
basis.
Einstein was one of them, wasn't he?
Yeah. Incredible.
There's lots of others. I suppose then it brings me on to then I suppose how we work collectively then together to make sure then just on all the topics that we discussed around helping and supporting people with passports, with BT passports, with the engaging with the managers, and I suppose then what are the next steps that Openreach are going to be doing, and then I suppose we can come on to like how we work collectively together on it.
From an Openreach perspective, one of the things that we are aiming to achieve over the next few months is we are really tackling listening sessions. So as much as a committee, we might say we know what the problems are. Clearly we don't, because there's huge amounts of individuals out there that we don't even know because they've not come forward as neurodivergent or having a disability at the moment. So I guess for me, we need everyone to come forward. We need you to talk to us. Susan's mentioned about listening sessions, so we're really going to do an awful lot of listening surveys and listening sessions to find out more about what the people want and need, and then Susan and I's job is to then work with yourselves as the CWU to share that knowledge with you and really do something different. We've done so much over the last 18 months anyway with the previous chairs. We are shortlisted, finalised for an award from a disability network perspective as well for the European Diversity Awards. We need to be doing that for a new enabled network. We want to, in the next 18, 24 months, we want to be able to say, these are the massive things that we've done over the last 2 years to really support our people. And we want everyone in Openreach to be talking about what we've actually done, what we've delivered, and how it's changed your working lives as well.
I know over the last number of years there has been a massive piece of work, and you have tried to work with us as best as to try and see how do we change things, how do we change the direction, what can we do. There was even a massive piece of work done in the learning development and L&D, especially with a number of new recruits that were coming through, and this is where the work still, there's so much more that we can do and we can do collectively. That I know that some of our members will be telling us that Openreach don't go far enough, they don't try to help with disabilities, neurodiverse, and that's where I would ask for our members to contact us, contact local branches, make us aware of those examples, because then we can then see, right, is it the fact of we need to make that manager aware of this individual needs the help and support, has the help and support actually been there, and our branch reps can actually help and give that guidance and the support for some of these individuals. And we know that there are still pitfalls, and that's where we continually bring some of these issues then to yourselves and to Openreach. But without us knowing that there are issues out there, then you can't change it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's so important that you as members, you contact us, let us know what's going on, what's happening in the workplace, so that we can bring it to yourselves, we can bring it to you, Lindsay, and to Susan. And we can have that conversation. We can bring the list of the issues that's ongoing, or if it's in hotspots, if there's in a particular work stream or a particular area or a particular region, we can then work collectively with yourselves to say, right, how do we then fix this, or how do we change this? Because sometimes it needs a culture change, sometimes it needs just a conversation, but it's making sure that help and support is there for the individuals.
Yeah, I also think join the Viva Engage communities as well.
Yeah.
There is so much help and advice on there. We've just launched a new one for Enabled that will improve over the next couple of weeks as we get more information. It's got loads of links, advice. We've got some of our committee members, they come on board. Michael does loads of wellbeing videos on there as well, short and sharp, 2 minutes long, and they might just help somebody. So please come and get involved, start the conversations on there, or join in the conversations that are already there, and signpost to us where you need our help, and which bits do you like, which bits do you want to see more of. Just please come and talk to us.
So Susan, going to ask a question of yourself, because a lot of our representatives are feeding back to ourselves as CWU to say about the support in the field and what are Openreach actually doing in the field, because the field sometimes out of the loop compared to some of the things that happen in the desk, especially whenever people in the desk maybe have the support and individuals around them a lot of the time, but it just seems to be a bit of a common theme across in the field at the moment. So just wondering from yourself of what are Openreach going to be doing in the next steps to tackle some of this?
So it's a big it's not an issue, but it's a gap. Okay, and if I'm really honest, from a field perspective, I've worked in Openreach for 8 years, and up until I applied to be the chair, I hadn't heard anything about neurodiversity in the field. So I'm aware that there's a gap. So what we're doing is we're going for some sort of field activation. We're looking at how we can almost get ourselves into the field, because you know how isolating a job it can be for an engineer lone working. They don't have the ability to sit in a room, or like Desk have got the ability to sit with people and get support, and they also are out and about in the field working. So how do we touch them, I suppose? So that's going to be a big focus, and I've even offered to do a trial in Scotland to try and see what way we can support and how we make it work to support our engineers better.
It's excellent to hear that, Susan, and that's where we can help support in the CW as our reps actually in the field, out and about in the field, and especially if it is happening then in Scotland, then we can make sure that we are helping especially if what Openreach, what you're sending out and what you're doing, and we can help bolster some of that too. So I suppose then this is kind of coming to the end of the podcast, because there's so much more I know we could talk about and we could discuss. But we know that some of you then, and this is quite lengthy and quite long. But that's where we do know that we could do another update session on how this has actually progressed across Openreach and working with ourselves. And what has happened, especially maybe on the back of the trials and across in the desk network and stuff too. Because we need to make sure there still is a focus then, even though we do need the focus in field, we also still need the focus in desk, because there's still more that we can actually be doing across this space. I know we touched on education as key, and the stigma piece, and people not being afraid of that stigma. I think that's really important, that everybody needs help and support. We just need it in different ways. And then sometimes actually understanding what support's actually needed will actually help. But do please, this is where I know, Lindsay, you said it earlier too, but reaching out to Openreach, using the network that's there, that's available, and also speaking to ourselves, speaking to us. And if there is anything you want to raise in confidence, that you can do that. You can. I know, Lindsay, you'd be happy for, and Susan, for somebody who wants to reach out in confidence. And it's the same from the CW perspective. And this podcast today is just, I think it's really important to show that we are working collaboratively. We want to bring our members' issues to the business, that we can then try and get this result, we can get it resolved, and we can then bring to life then neurodiversity across Openreach.